Hello, everyone. In this week's episode, we are talking about Mikey and Nicky, but before that, we are talking about The Hand of God, Lamb, and Red Rocket.
Great enunciation.
Yep.
Yeah, every letter in that.
Letters mean things.
Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me as always is a degenerate gambler who has lost $20,000. Mike, how you doing today?
Apparently I've been better, it would seem.
I would think so. Well, hopefully you'll get that back with the help of Justin, who's going to help him. This is a really poorly put together intro.
No,
but
you're doing
Justin, how excited are you about helping Mike?
Good. I mean, financially, Mike, I can't help you, but if you want, I'm glad to go pick you up all the free creamer I can find.
Would you buy 15 cups of coffee for me to get that creamer?
Depends where. Starbucks? Maybe not.
Yeah, that's a bit steep.
Yeah, that'd be the $20,000 right there.
Gas station? Maybe.
All right, and if this is your first time listening, this is a Casually Criterion episode, which is a Criterion Collection focused episode that we like to do usually every other week. The past couple months, there's been a lot of new movies coming out, so we've been doing things a little differently. But anyway, usually
it's kind
every
of the
other
norm
week.
for this time of year, just because we have so many new awardsy movies, and we gear up for our end of the year episodes and that sort of thing.
Exactly. But anyway, before we get to the main review, we'll be doing our usual News on the March, where we talk about news and things that we have been watching. So if you haven't seen Mikey and Nicky, you can still listen. Then we move into the Casually Criterion review. We'll give you plenty of time and a spoiler bumper and everything, or a movie bumper. And then the main review is Mikey and Nicky, spine number 957.
That's right. And as Mike said, the listeners vote on the Criterion films that we do on these Casually Criterion episodes. So follow us on Twitter at Casual Cinecast. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. If you want to send us any messages, questions about the movies we're reviewing, you can send messages to any of those social media accounts. You can also email us at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And then, of course, I don't know if you mentioned this, Mike, but with the polls, we do those at the end of the episode, so stay tuned to the end of the episode after the review of Mikey and Nicky for our choices for the next poll. And and last but not least, go onto iTunes, go onto whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, give us a 5-star review if you haven't done so already. Help other people find the show. It'd be great.
Yeah, Spotify just added reviews, so there you go.
Have you reviewed us on Spotify?
I did.
I have not.
I gave us 1 star.
Yeah, I haven't done it either.
You gave us 1 star? Did you give us any actual feedback to?
No.
To get better.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know where I need to improve.
Well, I hope you gave that was all you.
Yeah, I gave me 1 star, but you guys just got drugged down with me. I'm sorry. All right. Anyways, news on the march?
Yeah, news on the march.
March
Let's
on.
News on the march!
All right, Justin, why don't you get us kicked off on News on the March, sir? What have you been up to?
So I watched this movie a couple nights ago, and I wanted to talk about it. I've been gearing up. I think I mentioned this already in this episode, but the end of the year episodes, the best of. I've been knocking off a lot of things that have been on my list to see, and there was a film that actually came out on Netflix, and I wasn't even really aware of it until it dropped on Netflix, and somehow it popped up on my stuff of new things that you might be interested in. And this is a film from Paolo Sorrentino. And if you guys aren't familiar with him, he did a film called The Great Beauty, which is also a Criterion Collection film.
I did see that movie a long time ago.
Oh, you've seen it?
Yeah, The Great Beauty.
Yeah. How did you like it? It was a Great Beauty? Is that what you said?
Yeah, The Great Beauty. I liked it. It was good. Long.
Oh, was
a little
long,
indulgent, self-indulgent, but it was good.
Well, funny that you say that. But actually, I will caveat that I did not see The Great Beauty, but I was kind of in the raptures of, or whatever, enraptured in film school, and couldn't really find the time to come out and watch this when it came out. But I watched the trailer a few times. I showed it to some people that I was like, check out this movie. It looks great. Looks really cool. But this film coming out on Netflix, it seemed interesting to me. It also kind of hit a little home conceptually for me, because it's a film that takes place in Napoli in Italy around the same time that Diego Maradona, who is one of the most famous soccer players in the world, is moving to the club that is called Napoli, right there. And that just kind of like interested me in general. I was like, I don't know how much this is going to be involved in the film, but that's just like an extra spice that intrigued me. And I have to say, I really like this movie a lot. I've mentioned earlier that it's funny that you called it self-indulgent, The Great Beauty, because this film is also pretty self-indulgent, but I think it's self-indulgent in the way, to me, that makes Fellini great, because these films, or this film and what I understand of Great Beauty and what I've seen of the trailer, they're very Fellini-esque. And Fellini is one of my favorite directors of all time. Like, I just love his sort of like over the top characters and somewhat caricatures of people and memory and, sort of intentional filmmaking that is in your face and not necessarily trying to, make you dip into like the realism of the film or like get lost in the realism of the film. And this film is no different. It's a story of a family, particularly a teenage boy. And there's just a lot of like, in some ways it feels like these kind of like revisiting Fellini's greatest hits from like things like Amarcord. And it's a beautiful film. It's fun. It's great. I don't really want to like spoil a lot of stuff that happens in it, but it's not like a too plot heavy film. It's just kind of this period of life you spend with this family. It feels a bit like, as I mentioned, like Fellini's Amarcord or Alfonso Cuarón's Roma from a couple of years ago. So I think if you like any of those movies, this is absolutely worth watching. And there's not a whole lot of soccer content for anybody who's less interested in the soccer stuff.
What's the runtime like on this thing? Because The Great Beauty, I remember being very long.
Great Beauty was about 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think this one's 2 hours and 10 minutes. Yeah, 2 hours and 10 minutes. Exactly. Okay. I nailed it. Wow.
All right. Cool. Well, are you going to track down The Great Beauty now?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this has reignited the fire in me to go see that movie.
Awesome. Cool. I think it was on, at one point, I think I watched it on Hulu way back in the day.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So
Hulu has like a bunch of like foreign films on there.
Hulu's got some good stuff on there that you wouldn't think they do.
For sure. My only exposure to this movie is kind of funny because, and that is the Hand of God, is Netflix pops up with like a trailer and they automatically start playing it, but it's the English dubbed version. And I didn't know about the Hand of God. It was kind of one of those, to me, it was one of those movies that just got dropped on Netflix and I didn't really have any anticipation for it. So it just starts playing and I'm like, what is wrong with this movie? And it was this weird English dub. It just looks so silly and weird.
Yeah, that's how I felt the first time I saw the trailer for Squid Game, and I was like, no, thank you. And then, of course, it blew up and became the most popular thing in the world for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how, like, why is, I know why they're doing it, but I wish Netflix wouldn't push the default as like English dub. It didn't do that with me on Squid Game, but apparently it did that with a lot of people, whereas like, just assumed that they wanted to watch the dubbed version as the default version.
Yeah, and it's weird because when I actually clicked on it and it switched over to Italian. So like I guess just the trailer was there to get my attention in English, and then when I hit play, it was in Italian apparently.
Interesting. Yeah, I bet they're probably like demographic stat stuff, whatever, says that like an English speaking thing will entice people more than it will lose people who don't like dubbing, right?
Yeah, I mean probably, but whatever.
But I'm with you. I mean, I would like it to accurately represent the movie in its intended form.
Sure.
Yeah.
But this movie, I mean, I personally think you guys will like it, knowing how you both feel about Fellini and Alfonso Cuarón and that sort of thing. Like, I think you guys will both like it. I don't know that this is necessarily as good as any of those, but at the very least, you'll enjoy it if you enjoy those movies. Like, it's still pretty darn good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down. I'm definitely going to try to watch it probably by the time we do our best of the year in a couple weeks. So.
Okay. Well, then my job here is done.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't convince me. It was already on my list.
No. I convinced you and I feel really good. So when this,
right.
you watch
Chalk
it
it
and
up
this
as a
pops up
win on Justin.
Yeah, you're going to get a big old you're welcome from me if this ends up on your best of the year list.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, anything else you want to say about Hand of God?
No, nothing that's worth talking about without having anyone else have seen the movie here, So we can move on.
I do know.
Yeah.
Because I'm about to have a similar experience because I watched a film that you guys haven't seen yet. And that is a little film called Lamb.
Bah.
Lamb. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of this movie, right?
Yeah, I played at Fantastic Fest. I still kind of hold a grudge because I couldn't make it in. So that's...
Why'd they kick you out of the...
Well, they only sold so many tickets for each screening, so I was not quick enough on the draw about buying tickets.
You hold a grudge against the movie or Fantastic Fest?
Both. I'm coming for you both.
Everything.
That's why you haven't watched it yet? You're just mad?
Yeah, actually, what's her name was there? The main actress.
Noomi Rapace?
Yeah, she was there. She took pictures in front. She was just right over there next to me. I was
she's lovely.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Lamb, this movie is interesting. It is a movie that when it was over, I was like, well, I've seen that now. And then I kind of just went to bed and didn't think about it. And then the next day, I was just like, you know what? I'm thinking about it. It's pretty good. I don't know if you guys have ever had that experience where a movie kind of leaves you, I don't want to say underwhelmed, but the movie was over and I was adequately whelmed, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't until later. It's just this movie is very interesting. It's not really a horror movie. It's less of a horror movie than something like The Witch, but still in the same vein as something like The Witch, but more like a fable, like a fairy tale fable type thing. Mm-hmm. There's not really a whole lot of violence or anything like that, or it's just very quiet and somber. And anyway, so I guess I could say what the movie's about in very broad sense because I think it's in the trailer. Everyone who knows about this movie probably knows it.
Which I have to say, if we were to rank trailers, this might be my favorite trailer of last year.
Yeah, it's
a great trailer.
Yeah, then I think you're gonna like the movie probably because it's very much the same tone.
Awesome.
But these two farmers who live in complete isolation one day find that one of their sheep has given birth to a humanoid sheep. It's got a little sheep head and then a human body. And they decide to raise it. And I can't really get too much more into it than that, but the end is crazy. I mean, I don't want to build it up too much, but it's just when it was over, I was like, what in the world? So anyways, it's just this really creepy kind of melancholy, somber fable. And I don't know how else to describe it, but I think if that sounds like it's up your alley at all, give this movie a shot. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It was directed by Valdemar Johansson.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's the best.
It's probably Johansson.
Johansson? Yeah, that's probably better. Johansson. But anyway, this is his first movie that I think he directed one other movie, but he directed one other short film. So this is his first feature-length movie. But I like his style. I like his visual sense of things. And anyway, when the movie's over, you'll go back and you can kind of like recontextualize things that were happening throughout the movie where you're like, oh, I see. So it's got a nice little script. It's tight, but it's also pretty eerie and kind of a weird plot. So I don't know. It's going to be a niche movie no matter what. But
it's A24, right?
No, actually, I think it's Neon.
Oh, okay.
But maybe it's A24. I don't know. I don't know how to tell that on IMDb.
Yeah, I don't know either. It certainly has the vibe of an A24 movie, whether it is or
definitely.
isn't.
Yeah.
It is A24.
It is A24? Okay.
Yeah, according to Google.
Yeah, that makes sense. It seems like an A24 picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about watching this.
I was thinking possibly Neon because didn't they put out Teton?
Yes.
And some other crazy movies this year?
Neon's fairly close to A24 in kind of the movies they put out. I think Neon probably goes even a little bit more extreme, like into that, grindhouse type movie.
Yeah. I'm excited about watching this, though. I almost watched it the other day, but I kind of thought, I don't know if I'm in the mood for something that's maybe a little scary and a little horror-y, but it sounds like I don't really have to worry about that much.
No, I don't think so. I would never describe this as a horror film. Like I said, it's in the same vein as The Witch, but even The Witch is more horror-esque than this is.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm excited.
Yeah. So anyway, Lamb.
Watch it. Thank you for convincing me to watch that. Yeah. Now, if it's on my list, you can take credit.
Oh, I will. I will. In fact, I'm going to take credit for every movie I saw first before you on your list.
Even if you saw it like a couple hours before me and we'd already decided.
Even if I saw it the same day, but like I saw it at 8 and you saw it at 9.
Okay.
This podcast is getting really Mikey and Nicky right now.
Oh, gosh. It is. Okay. Let's move on.
All right. So the last thing on the docket in News on the March is something I believe we have all watched, and I don't believe it. I know it because we talked about it.
Well, I guess you can still know something's true and believe in it.
That's
believe
true.
That it is true.
I know and I believe that we all watched this film.
Yeah. What film is that?
That film is Red Rocket.
All right.
Chris, you haven't got to talk a whole lot yet, so why don't you kick us off? What did you think of Red Rocket?
It's not a movie.
By the way, I take credit for this.
Yeah, sure, you can take credit for it.
True, you did see it first.
It's not a movie that I would call good. It's an interesting experience to watch this movie. Simon Rex, is that his name?
Yes.
Man, he is phenomenal. The whole cast is really great, but Simon Rex carries this movie with his frenetic energy,
his chaotic energy.
Yeah, it's insane. And it just that energy, I don't think this movie is particularly stressful, but that energy stresses me out. When I meet people like that on the street, I'm like, or not just on the street, but when I was at Blockbuster, if someone like that came in and was just talking 100 miles a minute, I was I back away. That's the type of person that just stresses me out. And so watching a 2-hour film about a person like that was so stressful for me. But then he's just such a great actor. And it also it's kind of interesting because we had this conversation about Licorice Pizza last week. This is certainly a very different movie, but with some of the same themes, perhaps maybe not even the same themes, but the same situation in it. That this one made me feel much more gross about. And I know this, we're not necessarily getting into spoilers here, but I guess suffice it to say, if you guys hadn't seen it already, I would recommend it, and then I could take credit for you guys having seen it. But since that's not there, what did you think about the movie, Mike?
Everything you said is right. I never saw the Florida Project, so I never saw Sean Baker's. I never saw Tangerine either, so this is my first Sean Baker film, actually.
Didn't we do an episode on Florida Project?
No, I think it was on Justin's Best of the Year.
Oh, okay.
the year it came out.
Yeah,
But yeah, I've never seen it, so no. But yeah, no, this is really good. Simon Rex is great. He is this out of work, sort of fallen from grace adult film actor who moves back to his hometown, which is Texas City in Texas, which is actually, I think, a brilliant location because it's just like I've been there. You know, you drive through there, and it's like this town with like lots of like little patches of ocean, kind of like it's like little ponds throughout the city, you know, and it's like this really unique kind of vibe. Like everything's got really bright, saturated colors. You feel like the city, the location in this film is a character. You know, it's just like with like the factories in the background, the donut shop, the locations he goes to. It's just all great. Like the set design, like
so not to like interrupt you too much, but I live about 30 to 40 minutes from Texas City, and I had no idea that this movie took place in Texas City or even Texas. And as soon as the movie started, my wife and I were both like, hey, this looks like Pasadena or like close to Galveston, which is where Texas City is. Yeah, and I don't think we mentioned Texas City because it's pretty small, but it very much immediately gives off those vibes, and turns out it was. So the way this location is done is great.
Yeah, it looks like the Gulf Coast. You know, like it's just got this really unique kind of energy to it. It's just all filmed very lovingly, and anyway, here's what I will also say in addition to is Sean Baker and whoever the set designer in this movie is great, because not to be too judgmental here, but I think it's safe to say that a lot of the characters in this movie could be considered, I don't know, white trash, right?
Trashy in general, maybe?
Yeah, just trashy. But anyway, it feels like you're inside of like, I don't know if you've ever been inside like what you would consider to be like a white trash person's home, like a trashy.
I have. I have. Grew up in a small Texas town too. Not quite this small, or this run down, or this area of Texas, but yeah.
Right, exactly. So it feels like that, right? Like you have entertainment centers sitting on top of dressers. You have like blankets hanging from the walls. You have like, it's just this lived in authentic feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just, it's really good. I don't know what else to say. It makes you uncomfortable. It challenges you. I don't want to say I ever liked the main character, but you do find yourself rooting for him despite hating him at the same time. So it's an incredibly charming performance. And yeah, I really enjoyed this movie quite a bit. It will probably be on my best of the year list. So
You're
Justin.
welcome.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This will probably be on my best of the year list for me. And everything you said is true. I mean, the sense of location is great. The location looks great. I wouldn't be surprised if they said, hey, we just like went around and found people's houses and paid them money to let us shoot in them as is. Because
I wouldn't be surprised
so
either.
Authentic.
Yeah.
I almost think they did that with some actors in the movie too. You know, like, hey, you want to be in our movie?
There's a lot of non-actors in this movie. I think that's kind of a Sean Baker thing.
Yeah, for sure.
The staple is he's got a few really talented people as his main characters, and then most of the, side characters that come in and out are locals to wherever he's shooting. In Florida Project, he had Willem Dafoe and the lead girl actress and like her mom and maybe another actress or two in there, and then it's a lot of locals to my understanding, and that comes across because the people feel so authentic in this movie, and then
they do.
He introduces his professional actors into that and makes them also seem authentic to me, which is it's kind of seamless, like 99% of the time. The line between his lead actors and the non-actors that he casts, probably based on the way that they look, and now they just have the personality he wants naturally. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think this movie's just great. He's got Simon Rex has such charm to him that despite all the things that he does throughout the movie, like you said, you do end up kind of rooting for him. You want him to do the right thing or have something go his way just because he has such charisma. And I mean, it works perfectly for like his whole story of like being a really popular adult film star and then kind of being down on his luck. It all makes sense.
He was ever really popular? I think.
I mean,
I think he was making a living.
Okay.
Like he talks to people who knew who he was in that industry.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's hard to talk too much without going into the details of the movie, but I mean, I was just enthralled from like start to finish. You know, this movie's also 2 hours and 10 minutes, much like the Hand of God.
It feels shorter though,
but it feels shorter. Yeah, absolutely. It moves. It's man, it's fascinating. It's just a type of movie that I really love. Just something that feels really authentic, really genuine, really true to the location and the culture surrounding that location. And last thing that I'll say is that I watched this a few nights ago, and over the weekend, I had actually taken a trip to Galveston for the weekend and kind of hung out down there. And there's a few locations in this movie that are in Galveston or on the way to Galveston that I have passed many, many times or been to many, many times. Like the beach and the pier I've been to, I have passed the strip club that they go to. And like every time I pass it, it just looks like the grossest, worst place you could ever visit in your life. And just disgusts me in a way, just like the exterior of it. And so when they pull up outside of it in this movie, I was like, oh, yep, this makes sense. It feels to me like that's what this location was born for, to be a gross strip club that they go to in a movie. Right.
Yep.
So it was kind of fun to see some places that I just was, or that I just drove past, pop up in this movie. And really great.
Awesome. So I think that's 3 recommendations for Red Rocket. I think it's safe to say.
Sure.
Yep. Cool. Well, I guess now it's time to review Mikey and Nicky. Spy number 957.
On a night like this, there is no trust.
They're gonna kill me. Honey, I'm serious now.
Well, I'm not interested. I'm coming with you.
There is no time.
I know it for a fact they're gonna kill me.
You are not gonna die.
On a night like this, there is no choice. Peter Falk, John Cassavetes, Mikey and Nicky. Written and directed by Elaine May.
Ma, if anything happens to me, Mikey did it.
Okay, so as always with our Criterion films, we will not be doing our spoiler-free section like we do on the newer films. We're going to jump straight into talking about the movie. We might be mentioning spoilers from the get-go, so if you have not seen Mikey and Nicky, go ahead and pause the podcast, go find it. It's on HBO Max and Criterion Channel, maybe some other places, but those are the 2 that I know of. Go watch Mikey and Nicky, come back, finish listening to the podcast, and yeah.
All right. So Mikey and Nicky was directed by Elaine May. It stars Peter Falk, John Cassavetes, and Ned Beatty. The IMDb synopsis says, Nicky is on the run from the mob, and he turns to his old pal Mikey for help.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Succinct. I like it.
Just gorgeous.
Yeah. The synopsis, you mean?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Synopsis.
No, really, you're talking about Ned Beatty.
Yeah. And Emmett Walsh.
Beautiful. Okay. So, let's see. This is the movie that won our most recent poll, which had the theme of female directors within the Criterion Collection.
Yes.
And whose nomination was this? Who?
I think it was Chris's, right?
Yeah.
That's what I believe as well. Thank you. Thank you for being honest, Justin.
Yeah, I didn't want to take credit for it.
Yeah.
You know, I know I have a lot of
That
credit
is
coming
important,
my way later.
as we've established.
Yeah.
Chris, why don't you kick us off, man, on your thoughts on Mikey and Nicky? Was it everything you wanted it to be?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I thought that this movie was great in scenes. Like, I think the performances were amazing from John Cassavetes and Columbo himself.
Columbo Falk.
Peter Falk, which I just knew. Anyways, I thought those performances were great, and in those scenes, it was just like these really great. I'd be interested to know. I watched some of the special features on this, but like how much improv there was, because it felt natural, and like maybe there was improv where these two guys were just bouncing off of each other.
I mean, that's Cassavetes' style, but he wasn't the director,
Yeah.
so I agree.
Sure.
I also want to know that.
Yeah. So I couldn't really find that. But I felt like those scenes that they were in together, obviously, which is most of the movie, just really played really well. Now, I think in the end, I don't know whether the scenes add up to something better as a whole. But individually, those scenes are amazing. Of course, it's that 70s complicated characters, no heroes, really no likable characters in this. Maybe Peter Falk, but like I think even at a certain point, Peter Falk, I no longer was rooting for him either. So it's just a really interesting, complicated movie with amazing performances in it. And I think I'll just stop there. And Justin, what did you think?
Well, first of all, I liked Peter Falk's kid. He seemed like really great. Just wanted to get his mom a crayon. She was like, "Hey, can I have a crayon and a book?" And he was down to help her out. So pretty likable.
Good kid.
The kid? I don't know.
Yeah, solid
Crayons
kid.
Are,
Anyways, I do believe actually that this movie surprisingly stuck pretty close to the script. But I think there was a lot of improv in terms of the actions and the moving around.
Like blocking?
Yeah, the blocking.
That makes sense.
And because, throughout this movie, the camera is pretty loose. There's a decent amount of handheld. Not the most elegant of compositions all the time, because I think the actors didn't seem like they had, precise marks a lot. There's a lot of soft focus, where focus isn't exactly sharp, which I think, working on film, pretty low budget movie in the 70s, you're going to get that if you're not being pretty meticulous.
Yeah, there's one shot of Peter Falk really early in the movie that's just straight up not even in focus at all.
Yeah, I noticed that
it
too.
ain't even close.
I was like, Justin's going to notice this for sure.
Yeah. If I'm going to call Mission Impossible Fallout for its one shot, I got to call this movie out for its like 60% of the shots. That are,
fair is fair.
Whatever. But anyways, therein sometimes lies the charm of the 60s and 70s sort of like independent new American cinema, right? So
it kind of gives the film a grittiness too, like it works
definitely.
in this film.
Definitely, it's gritty. I mean, like, you can tell that there are times where they're just shooting out on the street with no lights and nothing, and they're fine with characters being so dark that you can't see them.
Yeah,
I know. It almost feels like one of Cassavetes' films. You know what I mean? Because he was so notorious for that, like independent cinema throughout the 70s, and all his movies were just like pretty much just like this. Yeah,
exactly. So I'll pause the talk about like the technical nitty gritty, but overall, I thought this movie was actually really good, and it probably took until the last 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, to really sink into like what this movie was doing and how it was, maybe operating on a level that I didn't quite like see or know that it was for the most part, and that partially comes from how each character starts in a certain place. We start with John Cassavetes as Nicky. He's paranoid, he's panicked, he's in his apartment, and he's asked Mikey, Peter Falk, for help, and Mikey's beating on his door trying to convince him to let him help him, and basically all of that is completely 180'd and switched and reversed by the end of the movie, quite literally in some cases. And so the movie to me, in hindsight, is like this really great story where we have these complex characters who we think we kind of understand because they're we think we have the paranoid, crazy, stressed out, delusional one, and the helpful, calm, cool-headed friend, and seeing them mesh together, seeing how they're actually a lot more gray than we think, and by the end of the movie kind of have some different opinions, or opinions that have at least like swung back and forth of like whether or not we like them or dislike them, and all of that is really fascinating to me. And I think what this movie is commenting on or putting out there for us to see in terms of masculinity and male friendship, and I guess just pinning that all into the sort of crime mafia underworld, and making it, I don't know, showing us these types of characters, these complex characters in that world, and making us focus on their friendship is really interesting to me. It's kind of a take that I don't know that I've seen something that's quite this intimate and not really concerned with the crime part of what they were doing. I could be wrong. I'm open to like hearing some examples of that, but this felt like a wholly unique movie. Even though I've seen some Cassavetes movies that are similar in style, this one just had a nuance to the characters that I don't think I've experienced before, like a focus on two characters, but at least not in like movies of this era. So
Sure.
I don't know, I'm a big fan of it. It leaves something to be desired from a technical standpoint. It's not a good looking movie, but it is what it is. And, I think I enjoy it for that. So, Mike?
Yeah, so I'm not far off from you guys. I enjoyed the film. I struggled in the first few minutes because I was like, man, this movie's ugly. It sounds bad.
Yeah.
So that's going to be unpleasant. But, I got used to it. I adapted to it. I watched this on Apple TV Plus, and the transfer was really good. It was the Criterion
Nice
transfer because it had the little seat at the beginning. And
yeah, I watched. It's the same on HBO Max.
Yeah. Okay, it's on HBO Max. I should have watched it there for free.
Whoops,
indeed. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the MVP here, if I had to peg one down, would be Peter Falk.
Yeah.
I think he is a good, I don't even want to call it foil, but he's a good yin to whatever John Cassavetes' crazy manic yang is,
Mm-hmm.
Because John Cassavetes is unhinged in this movie.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things he does are just annoying and like, I don't want to call him crazy, but like,
Seems like he did a bunch of drugs right before Peter Falk
yeah,
showed
it's
up.
like the man is off his rocker, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I racked it up to like a manic episode, where he's just running a million miles a minute or something. But yeah, he is abrasive and he tests your patience. But then all of a sudden they'll have a conversation where they talk about how, oh yeah, I knew your little brother or something, and then you realize what a rich history these two have really had.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they grew up together, they were close, they knew everything about one another, and it wasn't until they grew up and got into this life that things started to fall apart, right? Insults were made and feelings were hurt, and this idea, kind of like what Justin was saying, this masculinity, this idea that two grown men can just sit there and be so angry with each other in the way that they treat each other, but still never really have the maturity to talk it out,
Mm-hmm.
It's not until this terrible night where everything comes bubbling to the surface, and at that point it's too late. Because Peter Falk is already... That's an interesting thing, right? Is like Peter Falk betrays him and then ends up becoming closer with him throughout the rest of the night.
Yeah.
And then betrays him again. So it's like this really fascinating tale where it's like if he hadn't called Mikey for help, then he probably would have gotten shot and Mikey may not have felt bad about it for years,
Mm-hmm.
But now I think it's going to be with him forever. What happens. So it's just this really interesting little tale where it's like, yeah, it's a gangster film at heart, but really what it is it's about betrayal and friendship and growing up and time. And it's not really concerned with who did what to who and why he needs to die. I mean, you spend an hour with the guy and you're like, yeah, this guy, I could see him getting whacked by a bunch of mobsters who get fed up with his crap.
He has, like, now that I think about it, he has a very similar energy to Simon Rex in Red Rocket, John Cassavetes' character.
Yeah?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
He's, like, real charming. He can charm, like, just a random person off the street, like, and talk him up. But, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe he's not always, like, this crazy because Mikey's whole reason or, grudge that he's holding against him is that when Nicky gets in good with the boss, Nicky kind of starts ignoring him, starts making jokes at Mikey's expense because the boss doesn't like Mikey, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same way with the dad, too, right? Mikey's dad. Like,
yeah. So Nicky has, like, a charm. Like, he's not just this crazy thing. So I don't know. I guess I didn't know how much of that is his normal demeanor when he gets paranoid and how much is knowing that there's been a hit put out on him, because I guess he doesn't know, but he's pretty sure that they want to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's right.
He's right. Yeah. And so the panic that sets in during that, and I think also just this life that he leads, because he didn't develop an ulcer from finding out that there's a hit on him, right? Like, he's got an ulcer
like a long
from
time thing.
Yeah, from living this life of stress and paranoia.
Yeah, because Mikey pretty much knew exactly how to take care of him when he got there. So this is not the first time this ulcer has caused Nicky problems, I'm sure.
Yeah, no.
So there is one performance in this movie that I actually think is legitimately bad. Can
I guess, or do you just want to tell me?
You can. Go ahead.
Is it Peter Falk's wife?
No, she's not in it enough. It's Nellie. It's the Nicky's little mistress.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Whose apartment they go to.
Okay.
Played by Carol Grace, who did not say one convincing thing the entire movie.
Okay.
I don't know. Am I the only one there? Do you guys not feel the same way? I thought it was really, like, unnatural and too quiet, and, like, I don't know, maybe it was the ADR or something, because it seems like when she talks, her mouth doesn't move the right way. I don't know. It felt weird.
Scene is like kind of where I no longer like either character, because
no, definitely not.
Yeah.
He basically rapes her. So it's a weird scene. I don't know that I've seen it. I saw it a few days ago, so it didn't call out to me as a bad performance, like given everything else around it. But it just it did feel like a weird scene because I wasn't sure what was happening the whole time.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just the scene.
My thing with that scene is that what's going on with Mikey and Nicky is so, like, complex, and John Cassavetes and Peter Falk are are so good, and that I just don't remember what she was doing for the most part, other than protesting a little bit and biting Peter Falk when he tries to go after her. I've just kind of really
mainly the
focused
acting
in on
that
them.
she does is before all that happens. Is whenever they're talking about, like, watching the news and like.
Yeah, she's like, I like the news. Leave it on. I want to watch this. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I felt like the performance on her end was a little rough, but that's beside the point. The scene itself, I agree with you, is weird, and that's the point wherever any sympathy I had towards Peter Falk went out the window, right?
Oh yeah. And that's where, like, it's kind of the midpoint of the movie where we start flipping, at least for me, and maybe John Cassavetes doesn't become this great character that I view in the light that I saw Peter Falk originally, but
John
they
at
start
that point,
to flip.
I mean, I don't think they flip for me. I mean, like, John Cassavetes, basically rapes her is my read on it. So like both of them I was like, neither one of these people are, like, likable people, because then Peter Falk's like, well, okay, I'll go ahead and do it too. and she just happens to fight back a little bit more, and he's not as aggressive about it as John Cassavetes' character is. And so, like, just with both characters, and in a movie like this, especially in the 70s, you know, that's these complex characters is what it is. You don't have to like the characters, but yeah, at that point, I was like, I'm not even on Peter Falk's side anymore.
Well, it's interesting in that, you know, the reason we chose this film in the first place as an option to review is because it was directed by a woman, right? And there's not many films in the Criterion Collection that are, so we wanted to highlight that. I think this is one of those scenes that benefits from that.
Yeah.
Because it felt wrong.
No, I
right?
guess Rosebud
It felt bad
bad
to watch that scene.
Cigarettes.
Yeah, like, look at the tone of this scene and like
Things are
particularly,
going to start happening
John
to me
Cassavetes and
now.
and on her from Elaine May's perspective and her direction compared to, you know, even later, you know, probably the biggest, most problematic part of like Blade Runner, like Harrison Ford, you know, he does a similar thing, you know, to, I can't remember the character's name in Blade Runner, right? But
Rachel,
that's right. But he does a similar thing to her when she wants to leave the apartment, and it's kind of just
that old
passed
trope
off.
of you just don't know how much you want it yet.
Yeah, exactly. Which is Harrison Ford's kind of, I think he does that in a few movies, but you know, it was treated a certain way in those movies. In this movie, it does not feel the same.
No,
and
it's
I
not.
appreciate that.
It's not brushed over to make them look cool. Like you get the vibe of like a Harrison Ford type, right? It's
right.
I never think that she wants it, you know?
No.
Well, she the whole time the poor girl's just asking to be treated with respect.
Yeah.
She's like, not in front of him. Please, I said no. Please.
What did she say to him? She's like, I think he goes back to the house like later, and she's like, "You're the one that told them that I would sleep with them." You know, like he's basically spread this rumor that she is open to having sex with anybody, and you know, like, and it was John Cassavetes that spread it, and that's why he's mad at her, because he thinks that she'll have sex with anybody. But then, he's the one that started it.
But he does end up making a self-observation there that I think is important and explains a lot about his character. Because he says, he's like, I don't know, maybe I just like to show off.
Sure.
And I think that is his fundamental flaw in most things, right? He shows off to the boss by insulting his oldest lifelong childhood friend and alienates him. He is just sort of an ass, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, and Peter Falk is maybe, you know, the other side of the same coin too, right? Because that's his issue, is that he's being embarrassed, and that's what I think Elaine May, as a female director, has that insight on these male characters in the mob, and shows us these characters that are a bit petty in a masculine way, right? Like they want to be important. They want to.
Well, it's all about their feelings, right?
It's their feelings and their ego.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And to me, this is like a relationship that they've been friends for what, 30, 40 years? Yeah, you know, at this point. And so they have these like grievances that have just built up over time, because I feel like, you know, John Cassavetes' character, you know, like won his dad over, and Peter Falk always wanted to impress his dad type of thing, you know, and same thing with the mob boss, you know, like, so Peter Falk's always been jealous of John Cassavetes in that way, and so you really get that feeling of history through them that I found that was really great. Yeah,
and the other like thing where the female perspective really stuck out to me was the scene where they fight in the street, because there's definitely, at least to me, there was a vibe of like this sort of like sexual tension or something, like of like that, like being released. Some of the way they were fighting, they were kind of like all over each other. They were like punching. They were just kind of like wrestling around, and it was I don't know, this sort of idea of like men wanting
just kiss
to like,
already.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know what the term is, but that's it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a little bit of that going on. Yeah, I don't know. It's something that I feel like their masculinity and the comment on it is something that I feel like is benefited greatly by Elaine May here in the director's chair. It's something that, like you said, you can see so many of these similar scenes in other movies, and it may mean the same thing, but it's not quite played the same way. It's a lot more like cool. Like, like if a man was directing this, these characters would still try to be cool.
Well,
Yeah.
Supposedly Elaine May knew these people. These were like people that she knew in her youth, and she had written this movie like when she was very young or something along those lines. I'm probably getting it way wrong, but the story goes that she knew these people as a youth, and they were either cousins or like relatives in some way, and something like this happened, and so she kind of elaborated, and she knew these type of hoodlums, these low-level gangster type people.
Yeah.
So she kind of had a front row seat to it, is the way the story goes.
I also liked Ned Beatty's character, this idea that he's like a hitman, but like he goes into like his like insecurities about the job, right? He's like, only 3 or 4 guys use me for this kind of thing, and even more, and I don't want to look like an ass. And
Yeah.
and he's like, once I do like a hotel and my meals, I'm not going to make anything off this job. Like,
Yeah,
you get
that
the
was
idea that it's like, yeah, there's a crime organization going on, but like these are just working stiffs. These blue collar
Yeah, that is probably
guys.
That's probably the scene that stuck out to me the most as being unlike any other mob or mob adjacent sort of movie that I've seen. Is this guy complaining of like, how am I going to make ends meet? Like I'm taking a loss on this hit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't even feel like he's part of the mob. Like he's just some guy. They're like they kind of volunteered for. He's like, yeah, I can make some money. Like maybe he came back from the war or something. I don't know. It doesn't even. Or maybe he doesn't feel like part of the mob in the way that I have seen it depicted in movies,
Right.
And so it just feels completely different, which is good.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that feels more authentic or more done to make a point, right? To like make this more of a human character sort of thing as opposed to a mob story. I don't know. I assume it's probably a little more authentic based on the past that you mentioned, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what her relationship would be with a hitman, but like, it seems like they kind of knew these types of people. I know. I listened to there's like a interview with Peter Falk about Mikey and Nicky, and he talked about knowing hoodlums, or gangsters, corner boys or whatever you call them back then.
Corner boys.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a more modern term, but like,
Is it?
yeah, like those
It
are the
doesn't
people.
sound modern.
It's like, well, it's from The Wire. Like The Wire's like they have the corner boys or whatever.
Well, The Wire was like 20 years ago, so
I guess that's true. It's it's not even modern anymore. The Wire is well, that's a whole nother conversation. But we'll anyways, but he like would talk to him. He's like, whatever you do, don't hurt their feelings because they have to save face, and they will, like they will hurt you because they feel like they need to put you in their place if you have insulted them. He's like, anyways, it's that kind of mentality that I think is in this.
yeah.
Especially with Peter Falk's character.
So, how about that ending scene, right? Where like Peter Falk, Mikey goes back to his house and he's like talking to his wife, right? And he seems like even before Nicky gets there and then what ends up happening and he ends up getting shot. Even before that, it seems like he's like, did I ever tell you about my brother? And she's like, no. And he's like, Nick knew my brother. Nick knew my father. And he's like, basically realizing that Nick's been there his whole life and he's selling it all out for loyalty to a man that finds him annoying and doesn't even like him.
Yeah.
And I think there is I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. There's a conflict in Peter Falk's performance there that you can just tell. He knows he's making the wrong decision, but he's making the most pragmatic one. But do you think he regrets this decision before it's even made? What do you think is going through his brain there?
Yeah, I feel like he regrets it through a decent chunk of the movie. But in some ways the ball's already rolling. If maybe even to like try to back out of it puts a target on his back.
Well, I feel like there was a couple moments within the movie where Peter Falk was serious about wanting to like save him. He's like, we gotta get out of town with you and all that stuff. Do you think there was ever a time when Peter Falk was actually going to try to get him out of town?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Before what ends up happening with Nellie or whatever her name is?
The second time that they're on the bus.
Well, I think what happened. This is my like headcanon or whatever. Like I think John Cassavetes calls Peter Falk and is like, "Hey, come over. I need your help." And I think Peter Falk immediately calls his boss and says, "Hey, I know where he is." And it's all set up, like immediately from the beginning of the movie, Peter Falk's already betrayed him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
But then it seems like after the cemetery, like Justin said, the second time they're on the bus and they're playing the hand game, like little kids do.
Yeah.
It feels like there, Peter Falk says something to the effect of like, "Yeah, I'm going with you. We gotta get you out of town," or something like that. And I feel like at that point in time, it was genuine. Like he could have gotten, because like at that time they'd already lost the dude who Mikey called at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
They already like gave Ned Beatty the slip. So I feel like it was only after the fight in the street where he broke the watch that Peter Falk like doubled down on it and was like, "Let's go find him."
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that he never. I mean, I think that maybe he wavers in his performance and his like
his guilt will flare up every now and then.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like the option is it's John Cassavetes or Peter Falk one of them's going to die. And if John Cassavetes doesn't get turned in, Peter Falk is going to get killed, because once he calls and says he knows where John Cassavetes is, like he's on the line.
And I think a question I had throughout the movie was how much was Nicky kind of figuring out what Mikey was doing and being like, "Okay, time to leave. Got to go. Sorry. I'm going to get away from this restaurant," as he's piecing together how, shady Peter Falk's acting, right? Or when they're on the bus and he's, protesting a little too much of like, "We can't get off here. Come on." And that kind of drives him. So as like manic as Nicky seems sometimes and like unhinged, part of it feels like he's doing it to, using that and be like, "Nope, gotta go see my mom at the cemetery."
Yeah, I mean, his manic behavior
one up him
did save his life multiple times throughout this movie.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit of an act at times.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's times where Nicky is onto him, but I don't know that he ever really like lands on the conclusion that like Peter Falk is betraying him, because like he really wanted in Peter Falk's house at the end of that movie.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't necessarily think he's like, "Oh, he's betraying me," but it's just like something's not right. It's like this instinct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah, he definitely had that.
Yeah. But to the end scene, I mean, when I say that like I flip on the characters, I mean, like, the movie opens with Peter Falk banging down his door and ends with John Cassavetes trying to bang down Peter Falk's door,
I see. That makes sense. And
both times to me, you're just kind of like, "Come on, let him in." Like at least to me, despite how bad of a person Nicky is at times during this movie, I want Mikey to let him in. They have such a history that even though they've done terrible things, they've fought. You can understand why they're mad at each other. There's a part of you that, at least me, wants him to let him in and to like, we're gonna run away together or like take this on together. Even though I don't necessarily know that the movie would ever end that way based on the rest of it.
Yeah. There's a
sympathy I had for John Cassavetes, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that history. There are, I think they mentioned this in the special features somewhere, but they talk about like at a certain age, you don't make friends like that. You can't, because you have been through certain things with those friends, and you're not going to relive those things. So at a certain age, you can't make new friends that know you the way those old friends do. So there's almost like a losing a piece of yourself in that, even though how much you may hate that person sometimes. It's like family, like those friends are almost basically family, and you can hurt each other, but like you're always gonna be family or friends, and losing that it's really like Peter Falk was losing a part of himself, as opposed to, anyways,
yeah.
I think that
well, it's an interesting thing to think about, right? The idea of like ending the life of the last person alive who knew your father, who knew your brother.
Mm-hmm.
You can no longer at that point reminisce with people about the way things were. Once Nicky is dead, Mikey has no tie to that part of his life anymore, right? Not even his wife knew about his brother who died whenever he was young.
Yeah, he just has his own memories,
Right.
Like he doesn't have.
Right. So essentially when Nicky dies, Mikey is agreeing to never really reminisce about these things again with another person, Which it's sort of like giving up a piece of his own childhood, a piece of himself,
Yeah. And at that point, it doesn't matter how big a dick John Cassavetes is, because you're losing, yourself in that.
It's almost like a brotherly relationship,
yeah,
to an extent, right? Where it's like,
sure.
love him or hate him, like your siblings are your siblings. You
Yeah.
share a lot with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of this to me is like the beauty of this movie, and what's, made me really like it a lot, especially towards the end and upon reflection, is, despite it being ugly, despite, not every person it being like a totally solid actor, although most of the performances are good, anybody who has lines, but there's a couple, and all of its flaws, like the characters and the relationships are so deep,
For sure.
and none of it feels to me particularly forced in there or expository. It's all just things we pick up on and speculate on and find underneath the surface in the performances. I mean, it's an actor's movie. I think Elaine May didn't care about composition, lighting in any classical sense. She wanted the camera to be free and the actors to be free to like improvise their blocking and movements so that, the performances could shine.
For
and
sure.
the characters could shine. And that's what's great about this movie. It's like, I don't remember a single shot wowing me, but just everything that's under the surface in this movie, it's so rich. It's great.
And I actually kind of like it more. I mean, like, this is that one really out of focus scene that maybe, like, was a bit much. But I like it more for its grittiness, and like it's like there's not any composition. It all feels like it's just random, And I like it for that feeling. And I think that goes to the John Cassavetes films as well. It's not about the composition; it's about letting the actors do their thing. But I think in this movie, it actually adds as opposed to subtracts
Or detracts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it subtracts either. I think it just is maybe a barrier to entry.
Sure.
Yeah, but I think if you like films from the 70s, like you've seen ugliness, but like even Midnight Cowboy's ugly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, those city
True.
movies.
Yeah,
it's not this flawed, technically.
No. No, this is indie. This is very indie.
This is so indie.
This feels more like one of Cassavetes' films. This feels like they got done filming Killing of a Chinese Bookie, and then started working on this with the same equipment.
Yeah, it's a step above like Shadows. I remember that one looking particularly horrid, and it's also in black and white.
Yeah,
but it's been a while since I've seen it, so it's like a step above like some of the earlier Cassavetes stuff, but right in there with his like bigger stuff. Like you said, Killing of a Chinese Bookie, Woman on the verge of a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, there you go.
Difficult one. Also, Elaine May, only the third female director of a Hollywood movie in the sound era.
Crazy.
In the 70s?
I saw that. She was, I think, only the third woman ever allowed in the DGA. Not the third woman ever at the point that she was allowed into it. But I was shocked by that fact that, like, at this point in, I think the movie was shot in 73, released in 76. And then at that point, she was only the third woman to direct a sound picture in Hollywood.
Wow.
I thought she directed something before this.
That's depressing.
But yeah.
Okay, well, maybe whatever she directed before this was her first one. But yeah, overall, her work, she was the third, which is still crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else?
No, actually, I think I like this movie a little bit better after having talked about it.
Good.
Those performances are really great.
They are great. Peter Falk is always great, as is John Cassavetes. So, yeah, we were always going to be in good hands acting-wise.
Yeah. We need more Columbo in the Criterion collection.
Yeah.
Like the series Columbo, or you just want more Peter Falk?
Actual series, because they're like hour and a half long films, aren't they? I thought they were, they do like 3.
No idea.
Yeah. Anyways,
I've never watched Columbo, to be honest with you.
I think I've seen 1 or 2.
Oh, another fun fact about this movie, and also want to say that we haven't mentioned much about Elaine May and Mike Nichols' relationship, that they got popular together and then both went on to be interesting filmmakers. But there's not much to say about that, I guess. Just kind of a fun fact. But the other fun fact is that she shot over 1 million feet of film for this movie. It went like way over production length. Like, I think they were supposed to shoot 60 days and they shot like 120 or something.
Jeez.
Yeah. They had to move like location cities entirely because Peter Falk had to shoot Columbo. But anyways, they shot like over 1 million feet, and for a long time it was the record for like most film shot for a production, and I think it was most recently broken, if not broken for the first time, by First Man, the Ryan Gosling movie.
Man, all these facts you guys are dropping right now are crazy.
I know. I'm sorry. There's actually a lot of interesting thing. And for like perspective, like over 1 million feet of film being shot was 3 times the amount that they shot for Gone with the Wind.
This movie should have been
for half the runtime.
For half the runtime, yeah. It's crazy, but that, I guess, is like a testament to how much she let the actors go and do things and try different stuff and improvise.
I wonder. It'd be really fascinating. I do know. Well, it'd be really fascinating if there was those outtakes and we could see those. Like how much of this movie was made in the editing booth. I do know the studio basically wanted. They wanted to take it away from her, and so she like stole the negative and was like running it all around town, so they couldn't find it. She had to do a lot to keep this film. Yeah,
reminds me of that story about Sam Peckinpah hiding the director's cut of The Wild Bunch.
Yeah, probably
under like a floor in like a desert.
Yeah, I think I read that there was the version that came out theatrically had like 10 minutes chopped out of it, and then Elaine May and one of the producer or something at Paramount, a friend of hers, another woman whose name I can't remember, bought the film back, reinserted the 10 minutes that were cut, and then re-released it again. And then it kind of caught on from that point because the studio just kind of let the movie die because they were like, what is this film? How do we market it?
Yeah.
I
wonder which 10 minutes they cut.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was wondering that too. I think like if you cut out the girls scene, at least Peter Falk would be a little bit more likable.
And that might be prime real estate for cutting from like a studio perspective, trying to make the movie.
Being like, maybe we don't have Columbo hit this woman 3 times.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I think the Criterion version was the first restoration of that cut that they did once they bought the film back. So
interesting.
Thanks, Criterion. And that's
Indeed.
it for fun facts that I have on the movie, I think.
Awesome. Cool. So I guess that does it for our review of Mikey and Nicky. Sounds like we all enjoyed it. And now, should we move on to picking our next theme?
Let's do it.
Oh, yeah. Themes picked, but...
Well, picking our next movies based on the theme we've chosen already before the show started?
Yeah. Yes. Let's do that. Chris, do you want to tell us what the theme is?
Yeah, so we've got our episodes lined up for the rest of January. I think we're going to do an episode on our most anticipated movies and our top 10 of the year. And then February, which is Black History Month. So we decided that Criterion's been putting out a lot more movies, I think, of, from black directors and stuff like that after they got called out by the New York Times, I believe it was. So, we'll do Black-led movie for Black History Month.
Who wants to start?
I'll start so I can pick this movie before you guys take it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's still not many.
This is a film that I wanted to see when it came out, and I just missed it. And it's a film directed by Regina King. And it is One Night in Miami.
Oh, yes.
I have seen this.
I've heard nothing but rapturous things about, so I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, same. I'm looking forward to that one.
Regina King is pretty awesome, just for the record.
I like Regina King.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what she does behind the camera.
Indeed. So I guess I'll pick who goes next. Chris.
Yeah. Okay, so I decided to pick a movie. It's a 1992 movie. It's a thriller starring Larry Fishburne and Jeff Goldblum, directed by Bill Duke, and it's called Deep Cover. There's a little bit before, I wasn't the age where I could have watched this movie when it came out, and but I'm real interested in it. I like Lawrence Fishburne and Jeff Goldblum, so it should be an interesting film.
Yeah, there's been a slight Lawrence Fishburne shaped hole in my life since he wasn't in the newest Matrix that when we reviewed that. So I'm on board with this one, and I love the cover for it. It's really cool looking, the Criterion one.
It is very cool looking. I agree with that.
Cool. And
awesome.
that
So,
leaves
Justin?
me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go with another relatively modern film. I picked this one before. I think when this article originally came out, maybe it was last year around this time, we did this again, picking films from black filmmakers. And I picked this film then. It didn't win. I really want to see it, so I'm picking it again. But that is Pariah from Dee Rees. It's a 2011 film. And...
God, 2011 already.
Yeah,
10 years.
10 years ago.
11 years.
I remember seeing the trailers for this movie, and I was like, yep, I'm going to see that. And then, wow.
It looks really good. Bradford Young was the DP on this, who has gone on to do a lot of really great stuff. Arrival, A Most Violent Year, Solo, A Star Wars Story. Selma. So he's done a ton of work from a cinematography perspective that I really love. So that's another reason that I'm really excited to hopefully watch this when it hopefully wins.
Awesome. So again, those are Pariah. What was yours? A Deep Cover, and then One Night in Miami. So the poll should be up by the time you're listening to this.
Yeah, it will be. So go to our Twitter account. Again, that's @CasualCinecast.
Indeed. And are we done?
Yes, we are done. So thank you so much, listener, for listening. Thanks, as always, to Jake Wagner Russell for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bobscotch.
All right. Stay tuned to this channel, this feed. Subscribe. As Chris said earlier, we are doing our most anticipated films of 2022 next week. And then after that, we'll be wrapping up 2021 with our favorite films of the year. Then back onto the Casually Criterion for Black History Month. So, yeah.
Sweet. Can't wait.
Nope.
This is the most planning we've done in a long time.
I know, it feels good.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.